Morning, this is Ben. I want to respond to a video by BrettKeen.com. It's called Jesus Christ Never Existed by Brett Keen. Alright, and the way it works is this. If I can kind of zip through the argument presented in the video by Brett Keen. We don't know about these events in Jesus' life. So Jesus' entire existence, his very existence, is brought into question. Alright. Number one, and it's important to point out that this doesn't mean that he definitely did not exist. It would just mean that we're not sure. But we can be not sure about a lot of things. We're not going to go around wasting our time believing in them. So, I can see where he's going. But anyway, so let's look at the points. Let's look at the events that he says we don't have good documentation about. The wise men story. Number two, Herod the Great killing infants. Number three, the missing years of Jesus' life. Number four, John the Baptist imprisonment, imprisoned conversations with, later Herod. Number five, Jesus' wilderness temptation episode. Number six, the betrayal of Jesus, the betrayal of Judas. In other words, the betrayal of Jesus by Judas, by conspiring with Jewish leaders. Number seven, some private conversations during Jesus' trial between Jesus and Pontius Pilate and between Pontius and his wife. And number eight, he adds an extra one because it's not exactly on the level of the other ones. The miracle accounts, they weren't complete hearsay, but he says that they had little to no witnesses. They just didn't have much. They were only witnessed by Jesus' closest buddies, kind of thing. So, the conclusion he draws from this is that some guy named Jesus may have existed, yes, so what, but not the dying and resurrecting super savior Messiah that everyone believes in. Okay, now what's going on here is it's the same as if I tell you God is real because I prayed to him yesterday to find $5 and I did. And you may ask me, well, what about the other 180 days that you prayed to find $5 and you didn't? How does this, why are you ignoring all the other days? In other words, what's going on with this video is he's picked the events, the stories, the accounts that aren't as well documented to make a case that the whole thing. And so he's making extrapolation from these things to then further on say, therefore the death, burial, and resurrection aren't that well documented. And we could sit here and debate whether or not these are well documented, and I think he's wrong about them being hearsay. But the important thing is that's not really the relevant question. The best historically documented stories in the Gospels, in the New Testament Gospels, are the death, or just the New Testament period, is the death, burial, and resurrection. So you don't believe those on the basis of these poorly documented stories, rather it's much the other way around. Those are the best documented parts. In other words, just to say a little bit about it, there's so much you could say about it, but for starters, they have the earliest attestation. They have the most accounts that they were witnessed. They have the least likelihood to be made up. For example, the burial by Joseph of Arimathea would have been very difficult to make up in the situation there. The empty tomb is probably the most true because there's no competing stories. There's no competing traditions. There's no other stories. Everyone claimed the tomb was empty. The question was just how it was empty. The Gospels themselves, as historical accounts, devote more of their time, more of their detail, more of their attention to the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus than to anything else. It's attested to by Paul very early. By early I mean, you say it was 50 years after Jesus supposedly existed. In the video, Jesus would have left the earth, according to the story, in AD 33. So if Paul writes in AD 53 about things that and then he claims to have taught with Peter and even to have taught with Jesus earlier than that, we begin to see that, you know, his account is very early. So I mean, yeah, that's the end of that. I won't say any more because there's so much more to say. We just have to stop. Thanks, Bob.